Let's move on to some other equally important stories where President of the Republic Nana Addo Akufo Addo has described as unfortunate the treatment meted to Africans during the slave trade era by their slave masters. In view of that, Nana Addo Akufo Addo has backed plans for reparations as well as racial healing to ensure justice and compensation to the continent. It is widely accepted that the transatlantic slave trade, which is the forced transportation of enslaved African people to the Americans, began sometime in the 16th century. In fact, there are evidence of enslaved Africans being part of the Spanish expedition in the year 1526 to establish an outpost in present-day South Carolina. While Juneteenth marked the end of centuries of forced servitude, former slaves and their descendants were never compensated for their labor. This means generations of black Americans were set up for desperate health outcomes, poor generational wealth, and state-sanctioned violence, among other foundations of structural racism. Unfortunately, since the end of the slavery, Africans are still suffering the scar of the slavery. A study by the Harvard Medical School researchers suggests that if the United States had paid reparations to former slaves and their descendants, the risk of severe illness and death from the diseases and poverty would be far lower for everyone. Against this backdrop, President Akufo Addo says reparations to Africa is long overdue.
We believe the calls for reparations to Africa are just. The effects of the slave trade have been devastating to the continent and to the African diaspora. The entire period of slavery meant that our progress, economically, culturally, and psychologically, was stifled. There are legions of stories of families who were torn apart. Fathers who went out to fish or farm never returned. Boys who went out to play and were taken never came back. Daughters who went to fetch water never saw their parents again. You cannot quantify the effects of such tragedies, but they need to be recognized. Africa and her peoples lost out tremendously in that period, and its ripple effects are still being felt right to this very day. Ladies and gentlemen, reparations for Africa and the African diaspora are long overdue. Predictably, the question of reparations becomes a debate only when it comes to Africa and Africans. When the British ended slavery, all the owners of enslaved stray Africans received reparations to the tune of £20 million sterling, the equivalent today of £20 billion sterling. But enslaved Africans themselves did not receive a penny. Likewise, in the United States, owners of slaves received $300 for every slave they owned. The slaves themselves received nothing.
The president was speaking at a summit to demand reparations from African slave masters under the theme Advancing Justice, Reparation and Racial Healing. Organizers of the summit are demanding justice and compensation for Africans who suffered from the slavery. Ambassador Hamed Salah is an AU representative.
What we are here to recommend today as African Union is to agree on the establishment of a platform that will officially represent Africa in seeking reparation for the crimes that happened in the past. That way will ensure that the justice we are seeking is implemented, and the reparation that we are seeking are a reality and not a dream. So therefore, the African Union as your continental organization will certainly work closely with the civil society, experts, practitioners and others, as well as the media and the academia, to establish this platform. And we hope that the deliberations that will emerge or take place within the next few days will emerge at the end with an outcome statement that will be called the Accra Declaration, calling for the Africans to be united and for the African people in Africa and elsewhere to unite and to speak with one voice.